Stop! You violated the law.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in with us for another episode of the Retro Achievements Podcast, where we cover a variety of genres, topics, and discuss the bits and bytes of yesteryear. With each new episode we record, we attempt to reach further into the mechanics of RA, to learn a little bit more and appreciate a bunch the efforts and contributions that all of us here do to make our community possible and enjoyable. Today, though, we didn't have to reach very far. On the forefront of most every player's, and more than a few developers' radar, is the release of the beloved GameCube, a console cherished by most all who encountered it. A small, boxy colored unit of promised fun was hard to pass up, much less go unappreciated. In turn, we at RA have shown our appreciation to the console, to its legacy, to the impact and road it and Nintendo chose to pave, no matter how difficult or risky. For exactly that reason, I have my guest here today, Gollawiz, to dig in on one of the community's favorite consoles, to talk features, to talk beloved games, to reminisce, and to talk of what GameCube could mean for RA, and what it has done for us so far. Gollawiz, how are you doing tonight?
I'm great. I'm just enjoying playing some games that I've been waiting to play for such a long time on Retro Achievements.
You know, frankly, I'm upset that we've dug you out of the mines to have this interview, because you could be much better at making some GameCube games. But no, thrilled to have you here. You've been on the show a couple times before. We've had some great episodes. Honestly, we had a little bit of community engagement. There's a couple people who wanted you to come back, so I'm happy to have you back on again. What have you been up to since these last times we've been on?
Well, over the past couple months, we've been working on, obviously, the release of GameCube.
Sure.
So I, like a machine, just kept pumping out game after game.
Beautiful.
So I worked on 4 sets in that time, and after I was finished with those 4, I said I'm going to take just a mental break and relax before the release.
Now, as we do know, RA does not take sick days. I expect you to give up your family, your job, and everything else you hold beloved, because damn it, I need to play games. But in all seriousness, I do think you're putting your best foot forward on a lot of the development scenes since I last had you on. Putting out quality sets, you're obviously getting those player engagement numbers up. Before we dive into GameCube, what are some of the sets you've developed recently that you say is, some of your better work? Is there anything you want to draw attention to? Anything that you think deserves a play for fun?
Yeah, I think, and this is definitely like my highlight of the RA career that I've developed,
Ooh.
but the Pikmin 2 set that I developed alongside Griffin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we absolutely adore that game. And when you do a rollout for a console, because I know a lot of players don't know about the ins and outs, when you do a rollout, if 2 or more people want the same game, you're allowed to collaborate on that together.
Sure.
And it's, quote unquote forced. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. But Griffin and I decided we were going to do it together.
Mm-hmm.
We had set out a plan. And frankly, when they announced that we were starting rollout, we still couldn't work on the sets.
Ooh.
Because the tools weren't fully there yet, but they were almost there.
And I mean, not to cut you off, but let's give a shout out, if we could, real quick early in the episode. Lily Jade. Let's go.
Oh, absolutely.
Come on.
Lily has killed it. I have seen firsthand how crazy it can be, because you're working with, first of all, with Dolphin specifically, they have had years of built up code.
Yep.
That is on their level, and they have a high expectation for quality. And then we have our code on the retro achievement side. And to be able to net these things together was beautiful.
The barrier for entry is astronomical, but
oh, right, I couldn't even imagine the level of skill.
But she managed to get through. She managed to fucking do it, and now we have, thankfully, GameCube at RA. And I just once again, one shout out, Lily Jade. Thank you. Appreciate your efforts.
Same here. She is absolutely amazing.
Yes.
So when it was announced, Griffin and I decided to make a plan, and we honestly planned for a week. We had talked about what might be a good idea. Then we had played it, and then we said, wait, that was a bad idea. Let's not do that one. Let's save that for the bonus set. So, because we both have played this game more times than we can count.
Sure.
So we know every level like the back of our hand.
But that's good people going forward into the game. You want somebody who knows the game back and forwards, in and out, to develop the set for it.
Exactly. And we knew that because we had a high level of love, that the set would reflect that and how we presented it.
Yeah.
So it really is the highlight of my sets, in my opinion. It is fun, and near the end it's challenging, but it's that perfect balance of asking the player to do a little bit more at the start, then you get progressively better and better throughout. And by the end, you're knocking out challenges left and right.
You're feeling empowered, you're feeling strong, you've grown to appreciate both the game and the set. I think that's a very big quality to have at RA. We extend ourselves a little bit beyond, how to phrase them, standard achievements, the ones that come with, say, the Xbox 360 or whatever the official achievements are. There's a lot of wiggle room when it comes to development at RA. There's a lot of interpretation. There's a lot of perspective. What does an achievement mean? And I think GameCube, offering a larger library of longer games, more in-depth games, is going to challenge a lot of those perspectives that developers currently hold.
Yeah, and it's also because they're a lot more popular, too.
Mm.
The GameCube is this weird little console where it spawned between the Xbox and the PS2. And its library is a lot smaller than both of those.
Right.
But the games that it has are
very powerful,
super heavy hitter titles. You know, Wind Waker, Mario Sunshine, the Pikmin series, Super Smash Bros. Melee. I just have to say that alone, and so many people are like, that's the only GameCube game I've ever played.
Everyone's going to lose their goddamn mind.
Yeah. And so a lot of these sets have had to, and this is nothing against the PS2, but it was kind of the same vein of them having to have a spotlight on them. You know, when people look at RA, they tend to look at the most popular games first.
Mm.
So, for instance, when they look at PlayStation, what are they looking at? Crash Bandicoot, Tomb Raider, Metal Gear Solid. When they look at PS2, we had all kinds of stuff. And because the PS2 library was so huge, there's a lot of different branches that people could look into. So, you know, of course, one of the most requested and played games for PlayStation is God of War. But then you look at GameCube, and the numbers for these sets in just a week have exploded.
What are we looking at?
Oh, we're looking at sets that have already reached the 10,000 range.
Holy shit.
Like, yeah, Mario Sunshine is pushing those numbers. And it's a great set, so it deserves those numbers. But yeah, the numbers of players on those sets is dramatically different from ones on PS2. That's how much the people have wanted achievements for this system. And the sets have had to have a little bit more of a spotlight on them, a little bit more of a quality check. This was the first rollout that we had writers, the writing team involved.
Oh, really?
Yeah, shout out to the writing team because they're awesome.
Nepiki, what's up?
Yeah, right. And what's funny is that I'm a native English speaker. I grew up in America. I cannot type worth shit. And I'm from the South, so my dialect is also
So you're
weird.
throwing y'alls in there, so... yeah.
And the writers have been absolutely a fantastic help bringing the sets to a high quality. We even had, speaking from a member of the art team, people come in and say, wait, we can redo these badges to be a little bit better. We want to make sure that these are like top quality sets that we're releasing and showcasing. Because we were getting a lot of news with this rollout.
It's a big console. Of course you're going to get a lot of news. I think this is one of those things that like cannot be ignored. The community has been asking for this for a long time. And when it's finally
no more GameCube win.
Exactly. Like as soon as 3DS releases, what jokes do we have anymore?
Right?
But I wanted to step back for a little bit, get a little bit of a broader perspective. Not everybody has been with us for the entirety of the podcast. Not everybody knows who Gollawiz is. Tell us a little bit about Gollawiz. What do you do here? When did you get involved? How do you participate? What makes RA fun for you? And just kind of go off and explain to the people and the listeners why you're here.
So I started playing on RA, I believe, at the end of 2020, around September. And I wasn't too interested. I'd never been an achievement hunter. I've played PlayStation 3 since it came out. And I did cooperatively earn achievements for Halo, but that was for my friend. So I never did it for myself to go in 100%.
I didn't really care, Mom. It was for my buddy. I was holding it for a friend.
No, listen, I was invaluable because in Halo I was player 2, so you could spawn on player 2.
Okay,
so he'd go try to do the achievement.
He didn't get the continue point. He just got to be like, you stay out of the shit. Let me use you.
That's right. So when I saw RA, and because I learned about it from a family member, I had seen all of these sets, and I'm like, these are things I don't think I could ever do. The first set that I tried mastering was Castlevania, and
ooh, that's a high hill to climb.
Right, I didn't start with any free points, which, if you don't know, those are sets that are super simple, super easy, like Mario teaches typing. I didn't start with any of those. I started with Castlevania.
How about deathless, no items, damage list? Fuck you.
So, right? But I I completed it. I got all the way, got every achievement except for,
Holy fuck.
right? The only one that I couldn't get, I believe, was defeating Dracula without getting hit.
That was one of the earliest games I grew up on, and I still get so discouraged when I fire up one of the Castlevania sets. The early NES, Castlevania 3 was one of the earliest games I ever played. It was in one of the first 4 of my life. And I get so discouraged when I look at the set, and I'm like, what do you mean do it without a whip grade? What do you mean do it without getting hit? What do you mean do it without dying? I've been collecting lives this whole damn game.
So that was actually one of my first thoughts was, holy crap, this is far above whatever I would want to do. Because I had, just like you, I'd grown up on Castlevania.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm never going to be able to do this. But I said, I'll give it a shot. And I played at work.
Oh,
but
shit.
I played, and I got pretty far in this set because, I knew how to do things like, you spam the holy water and whatever.
Oh, yeah. There's some tricks.
And so I said, you know what, I'm going to try my best to master it. Well, I couldn't get Dracula, so I had to use the save state. Then I went to my favorite game, Paper Mario, mastered that, and then said, I'm dropping back, and I'm going to master Castlevania. If I can do
going
Paper
hardcore.
Mario, yeah.
Fuck it.
So I finally mastered Castlevania, and after that, I decided that I'm really going to, start doing this, because I had, even though it was challenging, and this was before Suspects Revision, so the set was a lot smaller.
Yeah.
I decided that this is what I wanted to do for my hobby because, I've played all of these games growing up and I emulated them throughout middle school and high school. And I said, I would love to replay those and have like a big reason to, because at this point I was still collecting, but I didn't have everything that I wanted to have game wise. So I said, this is the perfect opportunity for me to actually showcase what I have and showcase that I've got skills in it.
I think that's a great mentality to have.
Yeah.
I think that's one of those things that's going to make the set that is designed have enjoyment in it. If the player has a connection to the game, if the developer has a connection to the game, they are going to want to do it justice. They're going to want to make it a great experience for somebody to enjoy. They aren't going to make it too greasy or try hard. They aren't going to make it too easy. We don't want this free points bullshit. But we're going to make it right down the middle of the lane where it challenges you, but you still have fun, and after the end of it, you feel rewarded.
Exactly. And actually, that thought process is what made me want to become a developer, because I saw that there were games that, they didn't have achievement sets. And I said, well, I bet I could do that. So the first game, and actually the only game that I truly wanted to develop a set for, was Dragon Quest Heroes Rocket Slime. And if you've ever talked to me before, then of course you know that I love Dragon Quest.
You're a Dragon Quest head, of course.
So, but every game that I develop, every single game, I enjoy. I never develop a set for a game that I don't like, because I want to make sure that I'm making a quality product. Some of them are hard. I admit that some of my sets can be pretty challenging, but these are not sets that I create to spite the player. These are sets to create as a player that I would want to see and want to play.
That is the mentality we need to have. If you are just churning out sets for the sake of churning out sets, you are not doing the community justice.
I agree.
We're getting a little bit away from GameCube, so I kind of want to rodeo us back into the topic at hand. Without going into details, I just want you to name titles. What GameCube titles have you developed so far?
Pikmin 2, the Pikmin 2 bonus set.
All right.
Mario Strikers.
Lovely.
And Star Fox Assault.
That is a big title.
I'm also working on Ribbit King right now, which is a game about frog golf.
Frolf! Everybody, Game Grumps brought Frolf to the community.
That's right.
Everybody know. Come on, Aaron. Dan, we're going to be hitting frogs. That's a very fun and rewarding game. Just keep it very brief. Have you had any challenges in developing these games so far? Is the memory a little bit more fickle than the consoles you've worked on previously?
So without getting into too big of the metrics, it works on essentially the same as PS2. The memory is about the same size, but it flips it. We do this thing called, looking at how many bits an address is. PS2 loves 32-bit addresses. GameCube is married to them. and they will have a whole 32-bit BE address just set for something like the player's health in increments of 1.
Wow. But they have the room. They have the memory to do that kind of thing.
Absolutely. And if you know anything about the GameCube, technically speaking, then you know it is actually a pretty powerful console. So it's nice to see that the memory is being used and that they weren't stressed about the space.
Right. We had room to flex. We had room to grow.
That's right.
There's honestly a lot of things I want to get into on the technical aspect of the GameCube. There's more things I want to bounce off of you about the technical aspects of the GameCube, see your thoughts on it, see your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I think as one of our stronger developers in this community, if I could say.
Thank you.
Your knowledge on this would be pretty valuable. We are going to do that after we get back, folks. Please feel free to write into retroachievementspodcast@gmail.com with any questions or listener mail. You could be read out live on air. Happy to answer any of those things. But we will get into more of the nitty gritty and more of the retro achievements right after we get back.
Okay.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Retro Achievements Podcast, retroachievementspodcast@gmail.com for all listener mail, questions, or inquiries. You got a chance to be read out live on air. Happy to have that. We've had Gollawiz here. Got a little bit of an idea where he started, got a little bit of a catch-up, got an idea how he's contributed to the GameCube scene, got an idea how he's contributed to RA as a whole. Gollawiz, I want us to kind of dive in on the technical, kind of conundrums, kind of interesting tidbits, kind of things we might not know about the GameCube. Not that it might be relevant to us at RA, it doesn't impact us emulating the games, but it does prove to the concept that the GameCube was before its time. I think it was one of the consoles that tried to do something fresh, tried to do something new, tried to do something exciting, and while its sales numbers weren't anything compared to, say, the PS2, we still had, honestly, a cultural juggernaut on our hands. There was a lot of people who knew what the GameCube was. There was a lot of people who were excited to play it. Were you somebody who grew up with the GameCube in the house? Were you somebody who had that fairly early on?
So, because I had an older brother who was also into video games, I grew up with the Genesis, the Game Boy Color, and the Nintendo 64 at a super early age. And then by the point where I was like cognate, where I could think, we had a GameCube. So I have grown up with it. It is, I would say, one of my favorite consoles of all time. Definitely in the top 3.
So what were some of those early games that you remember being impacted by?
So one of my earliest GameCube memories is, and this, definitely spawned a lot of what I enjoy in a video game later on. I remember going to the store with my brother and seeing Pikmin. It was like an antique store in our area.
Okay.
And they had Pikmin on the shelves. And I'm like, what is this? And my brother's like, oh, let's grab it and play it. It looks cool. So we go home and I'm like, oh my gosh, these little Pikmin characters are the best thing in the world. I'm going to be obsessed with them for the rest of my life.
I love these little fellows.
So I played the crap out of Pikmin. Then we rented Pikmin 2. This was back when you could still rent games, of course. But it was right near where it was ending, I would say.
Long ago.
Yeah, right. I played a lot of Pikmin 2. I rented Wario World. We got Wind Waker from my brother's friend, and then he decided to give that to us. So I was in heaven.
Wow.
I played the crap out of Melee with my brother and his friends and my friends. Then Luigi's Mansion, Mario Sunshine, literally all the big titles except for things like F-Zero and Fire Emblem I played. I want to say every other title I own and loved. At least like the big hitters. I mean, I can remember playing WarioWare.
Like that's a staple memory.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's a core one that's stuck in there.
So for myself, it was a little bit different. I remember a big one for me was honestly Resident Evil 4.
Ooh.
My dad had been playing the series since I was so young and not really understanding the concept of zombies or understanding the concept of like, I want your fucking flesh. Like, none of that. So I had been watching him play Resident Evil 1 since I was just sitting on the couch with my legs dangling off the edge on the PS1. That initial scene where the zombie turns around and looks over his shoulder.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. Nowadays it looks so corny. But back when I was like 5, you better believe that was like,
that was the shit.
It wasn't the shit. I was terrified. It was the opposite of the shit. It was so real. Oh my God. The zombies are here and I'm gonna die. No. But it was one of those things that, like, many years on, decades on, when Resident Evil 4 came out, and correct me if I'm wrong, that game pioneered on the GameCube before the PS2.
It did,
That was a
yes.
big deal for the GameCube.
And it had the egregious label of only on GameCube in the corner, or only for.
Exactly. It fucked up the cover art. Yes.
Even had the chainsaw controller released with it, I believe.
How fucking sweet are we? That thing sucked ass. But either way, that was the first console my dad and I played it on. And like I said, I've been watching him play since the PS1. When that game came out, it was an all hands on deck weekend with like grilling good eats.
Oh yeah.
And clenching our assholes waiting for the next Las Plagas to sprout out somebody. Like it was the best. We just hung out. It was the first game to take the radical change into the over the shoulder that is now so common and so just like what Resident Evil is.
Mhm.
Resident Evil 7 did take that small change in the first person perspective, but then immediately after, we're going right back to what we know what works.
That's right.
I definitely have the GameCube to thank for that. The processing power in the GameCube was something not to be mocked.
It is actually like for the size and the release date, it is really powerful. A lot of its games, like the heavy hitters, will hit 30 FPS and then 60 FPS in some games and stay consistent. And they've got all kinds of graphical tricks to make it work. Super Mario Sunshine still holds up, and their little tricks that they've got.
What I was happy to learn is like the GameCube had a lot of ideas and a lot of thought processes behind it that would eventually come to be realized in future consoles.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, Luigi's Mansion was actually developed and mostly existed / practically was almost fucking finished in a 3D state.
Mm-hmm.
You almost had a 3D Luigi's Mansion on the GameCube. The only issue was you would need to buy a special peripheral attachment that was an LCD that could display the 3D. They didn't quite have the technology for the glasses yet. They didn't quite have the technology to make it just show up on your TV. So it was one of those things that became cost prohibitive. A large part of the GameCube's design was in let's make it affordable to the consumer.
That's right. And it was. There's a great image that I literally just saw today scrolling through Facebook of a screenshot of GameCubes for sale at $49.99.
Exactly.
On in the electronic aisle. And that is a crazy price.
And sure, inflation has happened. You know, years have gone by, but still, they're like, I don't care. You translate $49.99 from fucking 2002 up until in modern day. That's still not a bad price.
Right, and I think the games were still $60. So
yeah.
You're buying a console less than the game. That is awesome.
Well, that's a big part of the GameCube design. The president at the time, this dude served from 1949 to 2002. He was the third president of Nintendo, and we all know, a lot of us know, Nintendo had their hand in the game way before electronics, way before computers. They were designing trading cards, board games. They were always about the entertainment industry.
Mm-hmm.
But this man, the third president, Hiroshi Yamauchi, he served from 1949 to 2002. He was the third president. He was the head of the company for 8 years of the Pokemon franchise when it first debuted. So to spearhead that into your legacy, hey, Pokemon is still being talked about to this day. Pokemon is still a fucking juggernaut.
Oh,
and to know that you were responsible for spearheading 8 years of that shit, that's got to be big. Furthermore, this man oversaw things that were called the Color TV game. These were small independent consoles from the years of 77 to 79. Basically 5 dedicated home consoles, only released in Japan, containing a small number of games and a built-in controller. I don't know if people will remember the commercials you saw on TV, maybe where you had a joystick that was SpongeBob's face and the joystick was SpongeBob's nose.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I had the R2-D2 one.
Exactly. So it was that kind of thing, but way back in the 70s, the late 70s. Nintendo was already on top of that game. They had 5 built-in games to these things and then released them over a handful of years. The same guy ended up overseeing the release of the Famicom, the Super Famicom, the 64, and the GameCube eventually. The GameCube is what he retired on.
Yeah, well, what a history right there.
It's a huge bite chunk of history. Like, you have served as a legacy of Japan. You have served as a legacy of Nintendo. You are a representative of your country.
You were the head of something that changed the landscape and the culture of the world, you know, practically in a handful of years. It exploded, especially in America. Absolutely exploded.
If this was Civilization, you just won a cultural victory, my friend. Like, come on. So one of the things he said that went down in history, and I think still echoes throughout Nintendo's mentality, people do not play with the game machine itself. They play with the software, and they are forced to purchase a game machine in order to use the software. That basically says this mentality cemented the decision to keep the price of entry for the GameCube extremely low, comparatively. So customers could get to, quote, the good stuff, or as they described it, the software.
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo was one of the companies that priced their console $100 below the PS2. And though it didn't quite hit the sales numbers that the PS2 did, they still absolutely ate up the market because their profit margin was far larger due to trying to think of the consumer.
Exactly. And a lot of the friends that I had growing up that were living in maybe not the best economic state, a lot of them owned GameCubes. A lot of them had GameCubes and we played the same games. Not everyone had a PS2 though.
No, it was one of those things that was a little bit more expensive. Not only that, the games cost the same. So if you're going to splurge all your wallet on the actual console itself and maybe a second controller for your brother or whoever you have, what the fuck are you going to be able to afford?
Exactly. Sometimes you just have to get what you can get, and the parent sees what's cheapest and they say, this is what we can afford.
This is what we can take.
Right.
But honestly, the GameCube was a great generation for the value-friendly parent.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I don't think any child would be unhappy to receive a GameCube.
No, other than the fact that they could beat the games and say, okay, what's next? But by the time they did that, we had the Wii releasing, which is a whole different can of worms.
I mean, that's, oh my God. We got at least 2 episodes in there. We can't get in there now. Just kind of like jumping back to the games I really enjoyed as a child, actually on the GameCube when it released. Mario Golf was a big one for me.
You were speaking to my soul, good man.
Yes. So it was one of those things. My dad grew up playing games, but as most people do when they get to be middle-aged or whatever, they start aging out of it, or they otherwise have priorities that take them away from it. But sports games were always kind of his kryptonite. I was able to kind of entice him with like, hey, do you want to whoop my ass on Tecmo Bowl? But this one, Mario Golf. Oh,
that's right.
Oh, TC can stand toe to toe with Papa TC.
Nothing's gonna get a middle-aged dad more than some Mario Golf. That's right. My dad loved it too.
And when his son sinks a birdie and he sinks a par, motherfucker, we're playing another round. Yeah. Like, it was one of those games that was easy to learn, hard to master. It had a lot of people from IPs I enjoyed. It had a lot of mechanics to it that you didn't necessarily had to engage with. For instance, the top spin, the back spin. You could just, kind of ease your way through the game and still have a lovely fucking time. But if you wanted to get greasy, if you wanted to get super technical, that was always an option. Yeah, and I don't know if you ever played Hot Shots Golf, but good golf games stick out because the entry-level play, you can still have fun. You can still enjoy it. You can still play golf, other than the occasional, Tiger Woods moment where you want to throw the controller like the golf club. But Mario Golf is the same way. It's got that entry level where you can just line up your shot and play with the wind, and that's it. But then later on, you're like, oh my gosh, I can do these super heavy hits. I can do spins. I can do super spins. I can even make it curve through the air and land in a certain spot, spin backwards. I'm measuring the wind angle.
Yeah, right. Before you know it, you're an expert, and then you're going to be watching real golf. It's a rabbit hole.
Don't get involved, folks. You heard us now. No, but it is absolutely true. I think those games were kind of made as party games where, the GameCube was made with those 4 controller ports. Mm-hmm. It was made with the idea in mind that we're all just going to gather around. It had a handle on the back, for God's sakes. They intended you to carry this like they intended you to carry the Switch nearly 20 years later. Right.
Yeah, and it's, it doesn't weigh a lot either. It is, again, this console is, if anything, just surprising because you hold it and you're like, not only is it light, the discs are small, the cords are perfect. You only have 3 things to plug in. It's excellent.
Well, honestly, that's a couple of things I wanted to get into. One, it isn't actually a cube.
Right.
I ended up taking the measurements of this for the episode, so I broke out the old ruler. I found out its height is 4.25 inches, its depth is 6.25 inches, and its width is 5.875 inches. So these motherfuckers are lying to us. It is a game rectangle. But
a game box.
Yes. In all seriousness, though, It honestly played into their original thought. They want to maintain a low cost for consumer mentality with the console. By eliminating the extra space and developing proprietary techniques such as that small disk drive, they were able to shrink the console to its smallest possible size. If you don't have to bill the production company for that extra plastic, that extra room, over time, over 1 million units, that's going to save a shitload of money.
Exactly.
And
the GameCube also launched, and a lot of consoles will re-release over their years. For instance, the PS2, when it released, we had what we called the fat version. It was the big, clunky, rectangle, and then below it was
it's spelled with PH.
Clunkier.
Thank you.
Oh, right. But and it had all these different things that you could do to it. But it was a pretty hefty system.
It was a big boy.
You look at the GameCube, and they've got ports on the back for what you can plug in. You've got the AV input, you've got the power, right? Then you flip it over, you got your controller inputs. If you flip it to the bottom, you've got, I believe, 3 different adapters you can plug into. It's got 3 little slots that are covered.
Yep.
You take off those slots, those are adapters, and they said, we will probably be releasing future things to be attached to this. And they did, and it's one of the coolest things that they released to it.
The GBA add-on?
The GBA player, yeah.
Yes, let's go.
Almost nobody I knew had a GBA player because...
Motherfucker, I had one.
They also had a... Yeah, right. I know you do. And God, I hate you for it because I want one so bad. But everyone I knew also had Game Boys, Game Boy Advances, at least at this time.
Yeah.
But you could plug in your Game Boy Advance game to the bottom of your GameCube and play it on the TV. That is the coolest shit ever. And they did that before with the Super Game Boy on the SNES. And and everybody loved it. It was awesome because what's cool, you play it on your Game Boy and then you say, okay, I'm going to play it on my TV. Unplug that shit, plug it into the Super Nintendo. Bam, you're playing Pokemon, Mario on your TV. It's so cool.
Just to kind of draw attention to this was an era where not a lot of people like nowadays knew about emulation. Like we didn't have the access that we do now.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff that we did have is way smaller in terms of development. You probably had 1 or 2 people that knew about it, and probably just one
for sure.
For most cases, that were just slaving away for this as a labor of love.
Some dude working a day job had his own life going on, and then was just like, "Oh shit, I gotta update that thing."
I know that almost everyone my age that played games, also checked out ZSNES. So yeah, emulation was a lot smaller than it is now, for sure.
It's come a long way. I know that the GameCube was one of these forefronts of technology. They invested a lot into trying to develop concepts that they wouldn't ultimately realize into the future. A lot of these concepts Nintendo was trying to pioneer with the GameCube unfortunately didn't make the cut due to tech limitations at the time. However, they would remember these wishes and carry them into the future.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, the GameCube controller, if you're not aware, was originally designed to use motion controls, which we would later see on the Wii.
That is a crazy statement.
Absolutely.
And I know the controller is decisive and just in the way it's laid out, but if I had a controller in front of me right now and I can envision it in my mind's eye because I've held it throughout all my life.
Of course you have. Who hasn't?
It doesn't seem like it could have it, but I know for a fact that if Nintendo had the time, then they would have added it.
Well, that's the thing. There was a lot of Japanese exclusive variations that we weren't aware of.
That's right.
There was actually a big one. Nintendo brokered a deal with Panasonic. You might know them from TV developers, DVD players, that kind of thing. In order for Panasonic to develop the GameCube optical drive, Nintendo brokered a deal where they said, hey, Panasonic, you can sell your own exclusive style modeled GameCube called the GameCube Q.
Yes. Yeah.
Have you heard of this?
I have.
Yeah, it had a built-in DVD player.
Yep.
It literally, like I said, only existed due to that brokered deal. It was this large, more tall of a rectangle, a lot of LEDs. This thing lit up like a space shuttle. But it was this reflective silver box. Unfortunately, never sold outside of Japan, but it basically was just a GameCube that did the same thing a PS2 could, play DVDs.
And it looks like a development build.
Absolutely.
If I recall. You look at it and you say, that thing looks like a prototype.
Yeah, that is not a finished product, but they were selling it like one goddamn.
It's so cool how much stuff that they could get done with this product. And this is also, Nintendo is known for pushing the boundaries of design. A lot of people
Yes.
are they think of the 64 fondly. They think of all these classic games, Ocarina of Time, Mario 64, and then they say, "Oh, but the controller sucks."
No.
Right. So a lot of people are split between some choices. And in the 90s, Nintendo was really big on experimenting. So they released the 64. They had, the memory pack that you could
Yep.
add
Yep.
to it to increase the size for memory for games to load like Donkey Kong
Everybody knows that
64.
trivia about Donkey Kong.
That's right, yeah. And it was definitely a time where they wanted to keep their ideas going and keep flowing. Then they, experimented with the Virtual Boy before the release of the 64. So
Uh-oh.
they weren't against experimenting. They weren't against pushing the boundaries and seeing what could be done. And like you said, the GameCube is definitely the forefront of it. It said, "Hey, look at this tiny little box. Oh, by the way, it's the shit."
It kicks ass.
Yeah.
I honestly think they've always been challenging those limitations. The varied controller you mentioned, if believe it or not, it has spanned 3 generations of consoles.
That's right. Yeah.
It's one of those things. And furthermore, if an insider leak is to be believed, an update has been applied to the Switch, paving the way for GameCube games on the online Switch eShop.
Oh, it would be beautiful.
There are people who are suspecting that we're going to see official releases of GameCube games on the eShop because they just recently patched in a better controller schematic for the Switch.
And that would be great, because this is also a little humbling and a little scary for me, but a lot of people in my age range that grew up with the GameCube are also having kids. Saying that out loud kind of gives me chills a little bit.
Scary.
So I know a lot of people are like, yeah, I sold my GameCube when I was a kid so I could upgrade to, something else, or my parents got rid of it or whatever. They just don't have it anymore. So now they've got a kid and they've got a Switch, and the kid loves Mario, and they're like, man, I really wish I could replay
Sunshine or something.
Some of my favorite games. Yeah. So it would be a great idea for them to do that, because I know I would definitely buy some re-releases if they added in some different stuff.
It'd be a money funnel.
Yeah, if they added in a little bit of an HD port, if they added in some sound changes. Yeah, a recent example has been Thousand Year Door. That is one of the highest rated games on the GameCube. It is beloved. It is seen as like this pinnacle of the series. In fact, people say it's the last good game out of the series. I can't tell you how long people were begging this game to be re-released. They were begging it to be re-released on the Wii, on the Wii U,
no shit,
on 3DS, and now we've been begging it on the Switch, because we're like, the Switch could definitely handle it. So they said, hey, watch this. We will upgrade it visually. You'll have all new music. You'll have new content. The FPS is a little different. It's 30 instead of 60. But you've got all these different visuals. And so now people can experience one of the best games of all time on a new system. I think if they did that, it would be great and make a ton of money. Like
I can't
printing
agree.
money.
I can't agree with you more. The fact that Nintendo just trickles out these releases on their online platforms leads me to believe that they're not stupid, but they know that as soon as they release whatever, we're going to eat it up like a
It's a honey trap. It's a honey trap. They know we're going to do it.
We're all over it. Give it to me. Yeah. It's but it kind of draws me to one of the things you said there. Super Mario Sunshine, we gave Mario a water gun. All right. We gave him a jetpack, basically. On the GameCube, there were lots of radical first-party changes to beloved IPs.
Mm-hmm.
They had risks behind them and faced a lot of criticism at first due to the nature of folks disliking change kind of in general. However, in the first years that would follow, we'd learn that things such as the cel-shaded Wind Waker, or honestly taking Metroid Prime into the first person, would be revolutionary praised for decades to come.
That's right. And, gamers they've stayed consistent in their responses to things. They don't like change, like you said. Anything new that changes something, especially back before the internet and forums were really like, back then, the nerds browsed the internet. It wasn't everyone in the family. And they, specifically with Wind Waker, they released a tech demo, a video at, I think, Space World 2000 or 2001, showcasing the power of the GameCube before release.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, they showed all these different clips of different games. And one clip that they showed was of Link and Ganondorf fighting in a dark room.
I remember this. Yes, everybody thought it was going to be the next generation of realism.
Yeah, exactly. And because this was before a lot of people knew the ins and outs of the industry and knew that this was simply a tech demo, they had gotten their expectations up. So what had happened in this show was they showed things like Luigi's Mansion, which was a game with footage that was cleared to release, and then they showed this Zelda clip. So everyone is obviously going to think, hey, this is the next one.
Gala, I gotta interrupt you. I'm sorry. I have to. I watched this when it came out.
That's right.
I buffered this on YouTube on fucking 56.25 KB, my friend.
You were there.
I buffered that.
I was there, Gandalf.
Yes, yes. Don't cite the old magic to me, witch.
So, you see this trailer, you think it's real, and then Wind Waker releases. And I know there's a discussion in Retro Achievements Discord's general chat recently about how it shocked people, where they said, I'm not gonna. This is Zelda. I don't want to play a kid's game. I want to play Zelda. I want it to be gritty and realistic. And of course, as someone who grew up with Wind Waker, you're wrong. It is perfect. This game is amazing. It is visually fantastic. People who have grown up with it will agree that it looks great and it is held up. But yeah, it shocked people to their core.
I gotta stop you right there. It's held up. You're goddamn right.
Exactly.
It barely needed an HD re-release. Not that I'm unhappy it came around. I'll enjoy that every time. But the game itself, if you threw that mini disc in your goddamn GameCube and booted it up on a 4K TV, it would still look pretty okay. Like you're not going to be distracted.
Right. And I've got two things about Wind Waker specifically. One, when it re-released on HD on the Wii U, it looked great, but there was a lot of bloom. People complained about the fact that they messed with the graphics. It's the same game visually, artistically, and everything, but they added a bloom effect. And people were like, no, get rid of the bloom, keep the same effect. Yeah. And of course, yeah, just like gamers, they would complain about anything new. But exactly. I mean, honestly, I agree. I think that the visuals were so perfect because they were so simple. You didn't have to add anything else. A little resolution change here and there. Yeah. But the second thing was that it's a weird trend for GameCube specifically that they were really on board with summer games. I think one of their first games that they released on GameCube was like Wave Racer.
Ooh.
And then you had Mario Sunshine, which obviously is a game about Mario going to essentially Hawaii in the Mario
tropical
universe.
Times.
Right.
You know?
And both Sunshine and Wind Waker applied this effect because you're either, near the ocean or you're on the ocean. They applied this blur filter, like waves of heat coming up.
Yep.
Like when you look out over the horizon, that alone, it's like Silent Hill's fog. It is reducing the resolution of objects in the distance
intentionally,
while allowing it to keep that the same feel. You're not thrown off by it visually. It
feels effective.
Exactly. Like in Silent Hill, you don't say the fog is disguising the fact that stuff isn't loaded. You say, oh God, that's foggy because it's creepy.
I'm trapped in here and it's all shit. Yeah, exactly.
And it's clear that they were thinking of the fact that, like, not only is this going to affect the player atmospherically, like when I use a telescope and I look out, the heat waves are gone because, the way my eyes are perceiving it is different. But they're also like, haha, they'll never see the fact that behind the scenes it looks entirely different. It was genius. It was so smart for them to do that. And that's why it's held up for so long. Nobody questions things like that. Nobody plays Silent Hill and complains about the fog. They say the fog is the best part.
I mean, I would agree in turn. I believe that's called
occlusion culling,
where you get rid of the things that the player can't quite see.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big gripes about some of these Silent Hill remasters that we've started to see screenshots of is they get rid of the fog.
Exactly.
You get rid of the mystery. You get rid of the tension. You get rid of listen, a lot of the beauty that came from these old games, a lot of the beauty in the thing that makes them valuable is the fact that they were coded around the technical limitations of their console.
Exactly.
You had to get creative. Crash Bandicoot 1, for instance, had to literally play with the fucking memory on your memory card to make sure that the levels could render correctly. Like that's so adventurous. Nowadays, you just have to install a 500 gigabyte Call of Duty game and call it fucking good.
That's right. Yeah.
And I think we've lost sight of, good game design, not only in the sense of the player experience, but good game design in the actual term design. Coding the game, compiling the game, making the game efficient.
When you look back and see that they also might have been stressed for time, that they put this game together in no time at all.
There was never not crunch time.
Exactly. Like, Nintendo in their specifically early days with games like Metroid and Kid Icarus on, I think it was R&D 1, Nintendo's Research and Development 1.
Yep.
They struggled a lot. They were working in an environment where there was no heat in the winter. They were staying overnight because they couldn't go home. They sleep for 3 hours. To know that they would make classic games like this in that pressure and then stay with it and then say, wait, we can make it better. We can do more with this. It's just
That is called dedication.
exactly, yes.
Absolutely. But folks, we got a few more things to dive in on here. I brought a couple sets I want to talk about still. I brought a couple games from my childhood I want to talk about still. But we will be back right after this. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Retro Achievements Podcast. Just trying to wrap up the episode here, trying to get a couple more final closing thoughts. We got our guest here, Gollawiz. We dove in on the GameCube quite extensively. We still got a couple more things to pick apart here. We've got a couple games we want to highlight, got a couple sets I want to highlight. I even got a couple little bits more like trivia and just general things that I don't think people know about the GameCube that's worth just being applied. Frankly, one for you, Gollawiz. If you don't mind, I'd like to try to kick it off.
Ooh, absolutely. Go ahead.
So while you develop Pikmin 2, if you don't know, the Pikmin 1 small little GameCube disc, the mini disc, has a baked-in Windows EXE for the entirety of the Pikmin game right on there. Yeah, it's there. It's ready to be plucked. And of course, the community, dedicated as it is, went into overdrive, and now there are whole wikis, web pages, and everything else existing on how to get this thing up and running on Windows, alongside a whole toolkit and developer and debug feature. So if you ever wanted to really get into the fucking nitty gritty of Pikmin, apparently it's all there right for you waiting.
And that game's code, it can get kind of crazy. All of those characters on screen. So if you're ever curious about how they did it, go check that out because that sounds awesome. In fact, I will do that tonight.
Uh-oh, I see a claim incoming. The GameCube has brought a lot of enjoyment to my life. I think it came into a period of my aging where I stopped feeling like I had to play these edgy shoot kill 'em all games, and I was like, maybe we just try to have some fun. Maybe we just try to relax. A big part of that game, transition was Harvest Moon.
I love me some Harvest Moon.
I think it was my first exposure to an actually relaxed, like comfy game where it's like you don't have to worry about getting ammo. You're planting tomatoes. Relax. Right. Yeah.
You're getting married.
Exactly. Yeah, I did, and I was like, am I crying? Oh my God. I was a kid over here in my room, and I'm like, I'm feeling ways that I didn't think I could feel. So you're familiar with the series, I imagine?
Absolutely. In fact, it was one of my favorite games. I used to watch my brother play games because we have a bigger age gap between us. So I used to watch him play games, and one of the
What's
ones
the age gap, if you don't mind?
It was about 5-6 years.
All right,
around
decent,
that.
Decent.
Yeah. And he would play a game, and he'd be in a different age group, so his brain is working differently than mine. But I'm a kid, and I'm sitting here looking up. I'm like, oh man, I want to be a farmer.
I
want to pet that cow. Yeah. I want to pet that cow. It was awesome. Yeah, it was one of my favorite games to play growing up because it was just so relaxing and sweet. And just like Animal Crossing, it's just the vibe.
It was literally the next thing I was going to transition to. Because Harvest Moon was the first game where I was like, wait a minute, games don't have to just be about killing and not being killed. And then my cousin, he lived like 8 hours away. I visited him very rarely, but I was thankful every time I got the opportunity. And we'd go up there and spend about a week or two in the up north. And we would go to the Upper Peninsula. And if you're not familiar with the area, there is still to this day very little cell service. You're surrounded by the tallest of trees. You are in the middle of iron mines. You are surrounded by old glacier carve-outs. The Great Lakes are raging around you. But goddamn it, you got the GameCube. So,
right?
I was up there and I'm having a good time. My cousin shows me this game called Animal Crossing. And I am just recently off Harvest Moon. I'm just recently off learning that we don't have to, have everything be uber violent. And he's like, no, this game takes place in real time. You play it day to day. And you can you do your job for the day. You go to sleep. You wake up tomorrow. And you do it again. But then he exposed me to the concept of time traveling. But
the secret's revealed.
Oh, secret's revealed. But he has an age gap on me, much like your brother. And I would do things. I was a little kid. I would get upset if things didn't go my way. If I didn't get the right drop. If I didn't, dig up the right item.
Right.
And I would just turn off the game in frustration.
Oh no.
And of course, you know what happens. You know what happens.
Good old Mr. Rossetti.
Mr. Rossetti. He shows up. Well, my cousin employed a strategy against me. I would talk through Rossetti. I'd talk through him a few times. It gets longer. But finally, my cousin pulled me aside and he goes, Logan, if you do that too many times, you'll never be able to stop talking to him. And you'll never be able to play the game again. You'll just keep talking, and when you turn the game off and turn it back on, you'll keep talking. Don't do it again. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Yeah, so I fucking shit my pants, and it worked. It worked.
And you never reset again.
I saved the game every time.
Still scarred to this day.
You better believe new Leaf or whatever the fuck on the Switch, I'm saving. Oh, man. It's just one of those games I have a very beloved memory with. It of course, it isn't true. You know, it isn't one of those things that would happen. But
in fact, Rossetti would threaten that he would delete your save and then say, I'm just kidding.
He was an asshole.
Oh yeah, and I was in the same boat. I can remember. This is just showing how much that Animal Crossing meant. Whenever I get attached to something, that is what I usually like talk about for a week, a month. And my mom has grown up knowing that, of course. So she has raised me knowing that. And when I was really into Animal Crossing, we had a guide for it and everything. I would be at dinner and be talking about the fish that I just caught or the furniture that I wanted to get to complete my room. And I remember going into a checkup and getting a shot before school. And I didn't want to get the shot, of course. No one ever wants to get a shot.
No.
And I'm sitting there, you know, I guess I'm probably 7 years old. And my mom is talking to me and she says, well, okay, tell me about the arapaima fish that you caught in Animal Crossing. So I turned to her and I said, not only is it the biggest fish in the Amazon, it's the coolest fucking fish ever. It has got this really awesome green. And then as I was talking, the nurse pricked my arm and I didn't even realize. That's how much I was into the game, you know.
That's fantastic.
It had meant so much to me growing up. It was just so cute. It was cute, fun, animals you could talk to. And what's funny is that we got a re-release. We got what is known in Japan as Dubitsu no Mori E+.
Right. They had it on the N64, I believe, right?
Yeah, and I think they had two versions before. So we had gotten like either the second or third version.
We got the DLC Plus.
That's right. We got the finalized one. And there's so many little things that are different and so many things that are like that introduced me to like Japanese concepts or like furniture and whatever. It was just a perfect game, especially for a kid. Like I could run around, I could go catch bugs, I could fish, even if it was raining outside. It was the perfect game for that wanting to explore, but you couldn't.
I mean, not to take it away from Animal Crossing, but I just got to draw your attention to it because you are let's be honest, you are the resident Pikmin dude.
Oh, thank you.
No denial, just appreciation.
Right, no denial.
There was a thing Nintendo held back in 2001, just before the release of the GameCube, probably about 6 months. They had a contest called, much like What Would You Do for a Klondike Bar, What Would You Do for a GameCube?
Mm-hmm.
This contest gave 5 lucky folks the console months before it officially released. If you could guess, what is one of the things that one of those 5 winners did related to Pikmin?
Okay, I think I can remember.
Oh,
wait, no, this one was Mario Sunshine. Go ahead, surprise me.
So, a dude and 2 of his friends dressed up as red, yellow, and blue Pikmin.
Oh my God.
And then scarfed down a bucket of live worms.
You know what? I remembered that as soon as you finished the sentence, and I know why I didn't recall it while you were talking.
Because nobody wants to recall that.
It's because that's disgusting, and
Yes.
I want more of it. I want gamers to continue to do
Christ.
that because
It's
that is
disgusting
amazing.
and continue.
Continue.
Oh, God. I mean, kind of looping back, a couple of the games I grew up on that just really enjoyed beyond like Harvest Moon and Animal Crossing. There was a game called Bait and Kaidos. Are you familiar?
Ooh. Now, that's one of the games that I know of but have never played. So please inform me on it so I may play the achievement set.
Absolutely. I haven't actually checked out the set for this game, but it was the first game that ever introduced me to the concept of a deck mechanic battler.
Ooh.
I obviously had played TCG games, I played Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon growing up in real life, but this was the first mix of like an RPG turn-based strategy and a deck battler. If you've ever played like Slay the Spire, you get what Bait and Kaidos is going for.
Okay.
Yeah, so you combine that, get rid of the roguelike aspect of it, and now combine it with Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy.
Ooh, yes,
Like you
that sounds
have
awesome.
this long form story. You slowly get better cards. You slowly upgrade your dude. You get better gear. You get better party members. And it's just, I rarely get invested in the story of an RPG. But when you were younger and when you only had a handful of games that ever came around per year, you didn't have the Steam backlog that didn't exist. And it was...
You couldn't really emulate anything.
No, you just had what you had and you better play it and hope you fucking like it.
Right.
This was one of those games that stood out to me where it's like, holy shit, I'm kind of getting invested to this story and I didn't think I was going to.
Right.
It's just one of those games that stand out. But beyond the games of our childhood, beyond the games that we enjoyed in our youth, I kind of want to start talking about the retro achievement sets. Are there any games that you see that if you played them as a kid, if you didn't play them as a kid, are there any sets out there that you see are doing a game justice? Not too ball breaking, not too free points, but just enough challenge to feel rewarding and successful.
So one of the best examples I can give is the Super Mario Sunshine set.
Oh.
That is a set where you can earn half of its achievements just by playing the game.
Wow.
But then there's a climb and skill required to actually finish it. So when I started the set, and I definitely have not gotten anywhere near being done, just because of time.
Who developed that set?
Time No.
All right,
favorite
Time No. Right on.
It is a fantastic set, and it asks the player to play the game like you would. And because it's Mario Sunshine, you can always return to levels. So you see what we call a trigger flag, a little icon that shows in the bottom right corner of your screen when you're playing that indicates something has started, a challenge has started, whether that be like damageless or beating the game without dying. Sure. A trigger icon will come up, and if you're curious and you go look at it, you'll see the requirements of the challenge. There's one that requires you to beat a stage without jumping. There's a technique that Mario can do where he dives, and at the end of the dive, if you press A, he does like a somersault and flips forward.
Is this some flood usage or?
No, this is without flood.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's challenging, but it's fun to play.
Okay.
And it's one of those sets where you go in and you can play and earn a lot just as a...
But you also learn a new technique in this. This is a technique you will be able to apply once you learn it to other stages.
Exactly. It's a set that someone who's super experienced could come in and say, oh my, I get rewarded for knowing how to do this. And that is my favorite kind of set. Not one that crushes your soul and your dreams, but one that says, hey, you can do this. Here's some stepping stones. Here's a little breadcrumbs. And at the end, you're going to get this awesome achievement and get the mastery. And you're going to feel so accomplished. It's one of those perfect examples like that. And Wind Waker is another one. Of course, I'll never shut up about that stupid game. But I'm halfway through the set right now. And it's got a lot of stuff that you wouldn't even think about. And I know there's a couple of people who have already done an achievement specifically for killing a boss in a different way. There's a boss that's a giant Deku Baba plant. When the fight starts, it's held up on the ceiling and it's got vines holding itself up. And you're supposed to cut it down with a boomerang. It drops to the floor, then you cut like the core and kill it. But there's another way. If you get a bottle of forest water from the area right before it, go to the boss fight, cut it down with the boomerang, and then empty the water on it, it'll kill the boss instantly. Ooh. And of course, that's an achievement. And
that's a great achievement. That is a unique way to beat the boss.
It's a perfect achievement because not only is it defeating the boss in a hilarious way, but it's something that almost nobody knew growing up. This is something that you would see on a trivia page and go,
this is a playground rumor.
That is a perfect achievement in my mind. It's something that you wouldn't have known about, and then you achieve and you say, that was cool.
Exactly. It didn't actually bust your balls. You just had to do a couple extra steps. And like I said, that would have been a playground rumor.
Exactly.
That would have been one of those things where you told your friends about out on the school grounds, and they would have been like, that's boy. And then they went home and did it, and they're like, holy fucking shit.
Who's laughing now? I got video proof.
A couple of sets I kind of want to draw attention to. I think the Chibi Robo set by Dr. V is very fun.
Absolutely.
It's a game that I heard talked a lot about during the GameCube era, but I never picked it up. Frankly, during that era of releases, I was still in my very edgy, we have to kill everything phase. So I didn't want to play as a little chibi. But now, with retro achievements and a level head, this is a very fun and rewarding game. It almost gives me Katamari Damacy vibes without the hectic nature.
I'm so glad you said that.
It has the slap happy, kind of fun to it, but you're
Right.
not like, you only got 3 minutes, bitch. Like, it's, I don't know. Have you played this game?
I have. That was one of the. So I remember being around the same age, 6 or 7, and playing Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and seeing an achievement for the helper character in that game called Telly. He's a little television with a helicopter.
Mhm.
I saw the trophy and said, "What is this?" From a game called Chibi Robo. What? Looked it up on eBay, bought the game, and it became one of my favorite games ever. It is. If you don't know about Chibi Robo, you're a small little robot, and your goal is to help a family clean the house. Your job and the reason why you were bought is to clean up trash, help with spills, do the mundane stuff that people don't want to do. But you're tiny. I forget how tall you are in inches, but like
You're a little
Chibi
fella.
Robo couldn't be like bigger than the palm of your hand.
He's 3
Like,
inches tops.
Okay, cool. So he could hold a toothbrush and it be, like a broom to him. Or he could hold a spoon and it's a big shovel. It's a great game where you're exploring a house. But then
Google says he's 4 inches.
4 inches, man. Something about playing as small characters in that era just hit me in the right spot. But later on, the game a little, opens up and it's a little hilarious. But you're just cleaning a house and all of a sudden the wife of the dad is like, you know what? You spend too much money on toys. I think I'm going to divorce you.
Oh, God.
So the whole point of the game
But
from
I
that
mean,
point
for
onward.
real, the dude just lays
Yeah.
on the couch and watches this fucking superhero show
Hey,
and hangs
hey.
out.
We got to send love to our boy Drake Redcrest. That's right, Drake Redcrest. Love
do
him.
the pose. Do the pose.
That's right. If you can't see it, but I'm doing the pose. There's
Oh, yeah, I'm
gunpowder
doing
shooting
the
off
pose.
behind me.
I'm doing the pose. My
Yeah.
carpet will need cleaned.
It is a great game, and I highly recommend everyone play the set because some people can take this as an insult when talking about sets, but it is a set where you just play the game.
Yes.
The achievements
Enjoy
are
the
already
game.
baked into
you
the game.
enjoy the game.
Exactly. If you just do everything the game asks you to, collect all the frog rings, it'll make sense if you play it. There's little rings with frogs on them. If you open up all the secret little doors,
What is it? Kura?
yeah, right. If you collect every coin in an area, if you clean up every spill, you get rewarded for playing. It's the great, probably the greatest set to play first.
It is
for
the
GameCube.
completionist ideal. Like
Exactly.
you're not doing anything out of the realm that the game is asking you. You're just being asked to do everything that the game
And there's
is
a
asking
really
you.
good achievement in there too. Especially you can do this as a first time player, no problem. But in Chibi Robo, you have to plug yourself into the wall, or else Chibi will pass out essentially, and he will, quote unquote, lose a life. You don't actually lose a life; you just get transported back to your safe house
Yep.
and are plugged into the wall. But when you do that the first time and wake up, you're covered in bandages, and you get an outfit that's like you look like you've been hurt. I think it's called the trauma suit.
Yep.
There's an achievement for I won't say any spoilers, of course, because you should really play the game and see it yourself. But there's an achievement for getting to essentially what is like the end of the game. The game is only about, I want to say, like 6 hours long if you just
Yeah.
rush it without getting the trauma suit. So you have to just be conscious of your battery. And it's so easy to be conscious of the battery.
I've already lost that achievement.
And that's how it goes sometimes. But it's one of those achievements where you're like, yeah, it was my fault because I wasn't too close to
Yeah. No,
an outlet.
I jumped off a fucking ledge and killed myself.
It
Yep.
it wasn't one of those achievements where you say, "Why am I doing this?" What is
No,
the point?
I wasn't punished because of the game. I was punished because of myself.
And that's also one of the things I love about game design in general. When a game is like extremely fair and says, "No, listen, this was your fault, but
Yep.
that's okay. You can get better."
Yeah, we gave you the rules. We gave you what you were supposed to do, and you clearly said "fuck you." So, a couple of other sets I kind of want to draw attention to. Again, these are things I'm just finding fun on the GameCube. I haven't necessarily gotten to all these. I haven't necessarily mastered all these. Anybody who listens regularly knows that's not my MO. But Wario World, developed
yes.
by That American Slacker, fortunately has since this recording been hacked, so I'm sure he's going to have to figure out a new Discord account. But
I think he's back.
all right,
The
welcome back,
punished
buddy.
slacker has returned.
But the set is something I feel is very fair. There isn't anything here that asks too much of the player, but it does also challenge them. It does ask them to really know the ins and out of this game without just completing it.
Mhm.
I think it's a fun one. Have you? I know. I shouldn't even ask. You're familiar with Wario. Tell me
You're damn
about
right.
it, buddy.
So there's this company called Treasure, and they made a ton of weird games. And when I say weird, I really mean weird. If you ever know or have ever heard of the game Stretch Panic, you know that game
Oh
that's
yeah,
that's a freak game. It's a good one. It's just for freaks.
weird.
If you play Wario World, you're like, this is a strange game, and it's even strange for Wario, which is perfect. It's exactly what I wanted as a kid. I guess I would define it as a platformer beat 'em up. I mean,
Mm.
that's what you're doing. You're mashing the B button and making Wario punch the crap out of
Yep,
dinosaurs, pick
going
them up,
from A to
spin them
B,
around.
and yeah,
Oh yeah, it's a great game, and I agree about the set. And because I've gotten, I think I'm halfway through. It asks you to collect all the things in the level like you would in normal Wario games, but then it asks you to do stuff for bosses, like beat a boss without using this trick, or
exactly.
it
The
does have a
gimmick
little
of the stage.
right,
Yes,
and it does have damageless, but damageless in this game is a lot like what we were talking about, where you say, "Oh, that was clearly my fault."
exactly. This is a lot different than damageless in, say, Mega Man.
Right, exactly. You say, "Oh, I clearly missed that jump." I'll just retry.
Yep.
And again, that's like it's a great time because you play it and you say, "I just have to. I know I can get better, and it's not going to take 4 years for me to do it. I don't have to break my hands to
Yep.
have a speedrunner's skill level just to play this game."
Absolutely. And I mean, I do want to keep going and follow it up with one more set that I think needs highlighting. I think it's a lot of people played this game on GameCube if they owned one growing up back in the day at the time of its release. The set does have a little bit of a challenging time trial aspect to it, but people are unlocking it. I'm seeing a decent unlock rate. I'm seeing people that are able to overcome it. I'm talking about Mario Kart Double Dash.
Oh yes, great choice.
Played this a lot with my friends, played it a lot with my family. I think the set is realistic while challenging. I imagine you played this as well growing up.
Oh yes, that was one of my favorite games. In fact, I think I would say it's my favorite Mario Kart.
Wow.
Yeah, it's got a lot that's just fun. I think the having two players on a cart is just a lot of fun to switch around and play with what powers they get, with what abilities, what items they can use, and it's
Sure.
it's got a really good battle mode.
Oh, absolutely. It expanded on what the N64 had to offer.
Right? Yeah, it's just a perfect upgrade from Mario Kart 64. I know that people dislike the gimmicks, but it's just fun.
Just as a added kind of bonus content, something that I really enjoyed and really liked. I was at the time where I had a GameCube when Soul Calibur came out, and Link was the added character that we got to
Yes.
use. And this was in an era where games didn't really cross the realm of other IPs. They didn't really transfer to other games. They didn't try to intersect.
Mhm.
Melee and Super Smash was the only world where that really happened.
And even
So
then, it was still stuck to
Nintendo.
the same company. Yeah.
Absolutely. So being able to be Link pulling a bomb out of my fucking pocket and throwing it like, fucking Ivy, I'm feeling pretty damn good. Like
That's awesome.
it was next level. It felt like a step into honestly what we have now. Not to get too modern, not to get too futuristic, but it's not a game I play too much, but take a look at Fortnite. We have an infinite amount of IPs constantly trickling into that game. Constantly the licenses are going in. You can play as a stormtrooper, Peter Griffin.
I was
Yoda,
playing as
fucking-
Jubilee from the X-Men just an hour before recording.
Goddamn right. And it's because of the Wolverine Deadpool movie. It's one of those things. This is such an IP churning juggernaut. But back when Link was in Soul Calibur, that was so fucking brand new.
Yeah, that was. I can't think of any other game that did that and had a character crossover. Soul Calibur is one of those games that's like, and it has continued the introducing a character from something different. I know in Soul Calibur 4, they've got fucking Darth Vader and Yoda. That's the coolest shit
Holy
ever.
fuck. Yes. Yes, it is.
And then later on, they get Kratos and Ezio.
They
and
just keep
2B.
leaning into it.
Yeah,
But
and
I mean,
when that,
look at the other fighting games. Mortal Kombat took a page out of the same book. They have
Exactly.
Negan. They have fucking all the Terminator. They have these people that are just outside of their worlds, but it's honestly enjoyable and what the fans are going to want.
to pull it from Soul Cal to Smash Bros, I think you can thank Nintendo for making that popular, because when the Smash 64 came out, people just loved playing as their favorite Nintendo characters
Yes.
fighting each other. But when Melee came out, they introduced characters that nobody heard
parties.
of in America.
Yes,
You-
Fire
you had-
Emblems.
Yeah, you had Roy and Marth. Me, the average American kid, is like, Who the fuck
Who
are
the
these
fuck
guys?
is this? Yeah.
I don't know what a Fire Emblem is. I've never seen Path of Radiance before. I don't
Right.
know what this is. So what did you think I did? I Googled it. I told you about the
We're
Chibi Robo
buying a
trophy.
goddamn copy off eBay.
Exactly, and it was such a genius idea for them to do. Just be like, let's just pull in. And for Melee, it was only their own ideas until I know that Sakurai wanted Snake from Metal Gear on the GameCube, but it
Yep.
couldn't have panned
Yep.
out. So it's clear that they had ideas in place to start that crossover. So when Soul Calibur came out, they were like, hell yeah, add Link. That's a great idea. We love
I
that.
mean,
Let's do it.
just like I said in a lot of this episode's points, many of Nintendo's accomplishments were 10 to 15-year-old visions that they simply didn't have the tech or resources to accomplish at the time. They had to wait. They had to sit on them. They had to marinate. They had to develop. But they never forgot about them. The 3D. All right, we tried to do that on GameCube. It's too cost prohibitive, but we made the 3DS. The motion controls. All right, we can't do that for the GameCube, but god damn it, we're going to make the Wii. They always have these ideas in their back pocket, and they do not fail to forget about them. It's one of the things that I do think Nintendo stands above and beyond the competition for. I am far beyond a Nintendo fanboy, but god damn it, I respect what they do with their hardware, with their advancements, with their vision. I think it's very valuable to the video game scene as a whole. I can't believe for a second that you would think otherwise.
As someone who just likes video games, I don't like the only companies that I don't enjoy playing are ones that I did enjoy in the past and don't like what they do now.
Yes.
But it's imperative to know that
Looking at you, Blizzard.
right?
Sorry.
Yep. EA.
Yep.
It's important to know where your roots are, and Nintendo essentially started this huge boom, and they've continued as, like you said, like a juggernaut. They've had some failures, they've had some stuff that didn't sell as well, but they're still here and they're still innovating. If you look at the sales of the Switch alone, you can see that their ideas are still
They're
number one.
persevering. Yes.
Exactly.
So, Gala, we're wrapping into the last few minutes of the episode. We've covered a lot today. We've covered the GameCube, we've covered yourself, we've covered our nostalgia, we've covered what we hope the video game atmosphere to be for the future. We've covered a little bit of RA and how it functions and how we hope GameCube can contribute to its well-being. But I kind of wanted to just ask kind of a personal question here, like, what do you think the value is of being on the episode here today? What do you think talking about this, GameCube-centric nature? What do you think about talking about video game development? What do you think about talking about technology progression? What are your thoughts right now, today, on how we should feel, how we should look forward, and what we should do?
Well, I think GameCube, at first it started with PlayStation 2. That was the huge grab that we got, and we were lucky that Stesnik dedicated his time for that. But GameCube was like, it wasn't a step, it was a leap. We have leaped into a new era of retro achievements. We have doubled, I think, player count for the new sets, of course, and then our traffic has been increased dramatically.
Charts.
So we are now tied into two of the biggest emulators that have ever existed. PCSX2 for PlayStation 2 and Dolphin. Both of these emulators are highly respected. They have stayed alive for so long because they are built from teams that know what they're doing. To make a pun, they're not going to play games. They're serious about what they're doing. And the fact that we are now tied in, not on an official release, but with the nightlies, now that we are tied in with their releases, it's just imperative that we stay focused on community growth and staying positive and trying to keep things, it's no longer a little club of a couple of people who make sets and play them. We have, how many players do we have on the leaderboard? Isn't it at 70,000 players?
It's pretty close.
I mean, that's a lot of people who are sticking around, earning points, and playing sets. So I think, personally, it's imperative to keep a player mindset. You want to think of the player when you're playing sets, when you're making sets, when you're doing these podcasts. These are all for the average Joe. These aren't for the next level people who, spend all their time doing one thing. We are making content for everybody. And I really think that we have done a good job with GameCube specifically in making sure that we're keeping a quality check on retro achievements. And I'm really proud of what we've done because I want to stick around. I want to keep developing. We have so many junior developers that are starting because sadly, junior developers cannot start with GameCube and it's fine. It makes sense because GameCube is a big task. It's a big system. But there are so many people that are joining that want to make sets, and I want them to continue to make sets. I want our community to continue to grow. I want us to have, maybe eventually we'll get the Wii, maybe we'll get 3DS. These are other systems that will, have other dramatic leaps for us. It's important that we keep everything open and everything. I don't want to say soft, but I want us to make sure that we're not busting balls.
I would argue accessible.
Exactly. I don't want us to be coming for throats. I want us to be here we are. We're here to have fun. We're here to earn achievements, and we're here
to challenge you.
Exactly.
We're not here to make you face an impossible task.
Right. And again, we have really done a good job with GameCube and showcasing how much fun you can have and still be challenged and not want to snap your controller in half or whatever. Because I know a lot of people, when they think achievement hunting, like you said, they think of greasy and like getting sweaty, but we don't have to be that. We don't have to do that at all. And I think we've done a good job here.
I couldn't agree more. I think a lot of the qualities that come from that, make these games and these sets so hard and impossible to tackle is from folks who get a little bit jaded. It almost seems like they want to do a little bit more than the developer before them.
Right.
They want to do a little bit harder challenge. They want to do a little bit more of an impossible task. They want to be the end-all be-all of like, I am the master achievement hunter. But
right.
You start to lose sight of the enjoyment. The player is not going to want to do this, and ultimately you should not be designing these things to spite other developers or to try to be the most difficult creator out there. You're doing it to make an enjoyable and a fulfilling set. Don't make it easy. I'm not saying to make it easy. Make it challenging. Make it enjoyable. But don't make it annoying. Don't make it impossible or just one of those things that might not be impossible, but just you will have to sacrifice hours and hours to. That's not going to contribute to a good game.
Exactly. And you got to keep in mind that you are making a set to show off the game, to show off what it can do, how to have fun. You're not making a set to say, because a lot of times a player could master a set and then say, great, I'm never going to play that again. I never want to hear anybody say that about any game that I develop for.
Right.
I want them to say, man, I wish I could reset my...
That was an awesome fucking fun time. Yeah.
I want them to say, I wish I could reset my progress and play it again.
Right. It's one of those things people, I think, like I just said, they lose sight of the enjoyment aspect for it's almost like a one-upping aspect.
And one of my favorite quotes to bring to the development chat, to the developer compliance chat, to art team, it doesn't matter. One of my favorite quotes in general to say for this site, it comes from Jurassic Park. Jeff Goldblum says, just because you could doesn't mean you should. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing here.
I get
but
you.
Really, just because I could code an achievement to be, for lack of a better term, horrible, doesn't mean I should.
Right. It's the easy way out.
Right.
So we're wrapping up into our final minutes here. Any final thoughts or final send-offs you want to give to our listeners? We've discussed a lot today, but if there was a message you wanted to send home to people, what would it be?
I think that everyone who is taking part in Retro Achievements and is listening to the podcast is making art, they're making badges, they're making sets, they're part of writing team. Everyone who is contributing is doing an amazing job at building such an amazing experience. I've been on Retro Achievements for the last 4 years, and I bring it up every party, every dinner. I'm just like, hey, look at this cool thing I did on Retro Achievements. Oh yeah, I'm a developer at Retro Achievements. In fact, it actually helped get my job now. I work in IT.
Right on.
Yeah, I used my experience at Retro Achievements to say, oh, by the way, I've got experience doing tickets, because Retro Achievements has tickets for their developers in case an achievement messes up. The logic is weird or whatever.
So you have an SLA progress, basically.
Exactly. So the one thing that I want to get out to anyone listening is that if you want to contribute, you absolutely can. Apply it to the art team, apply it to writers, become a junior developer. I mean, you could start a podcast. You could do all kinds of stuff to be part of this community. Join the podcast.
There you go.
And there's so many things that you could do to take part of the community, and not everyone knows that. When I joined, I didn't think that I'd become a developer. I did not know I'd be part of the art team. I didn't know that I'd be, voting in revision votes or putting in polls in place. I didn't know I'd be doing any of that. I thought I'd just be playing games, but here I am having a blast, wanting to continue to do it. So if I can do it, you for sure can do it.
I couldn't agree more. I honestly joined with the same mentality in mind. I'm just going to see what these old games I used to play as a child. And then I got involved in the writing team. I got involved in creating the podcast. I got involved in the playtest team. I now spearhead that. Any opportunity, any avenue is open for you to contribute. It is easy as just saying, hey, I have an idea. I have something that I think could be valuable. Let me see what you guys think of it. And you just put that thing forward and everybody's going to respond to that. It's not anything to be ashamed of. It's not anything to be afraid of.
Exactly.
Everybody has room to contribute here.
That's really the best part about retro achievements. It's not the fact that I'm earning achievements on Mario's teaches typing. It's not the fact that we just got Dolphin. It's the fact that this is by the players for the players.
And the last little bit of trivia I have before I send you off, apparently the GameCube CPU outpowered NASA's computational power of their own space shuttle at the time of its launch. So playing games is more intense than leaving the planet. But that has been the Retro Achievements Podcast, everybody. Feel free to write into retroachievementspodcast@gmail.com. I'd be happy to read your listener mail out on air. Questions, suggestions, comments, love to have you. Gollawiz, thrilled to have you on this episode. Glad to have you back, man. It's been a long time coming. Listeners have been wanting to have you aboard. Just happy to have you here. But that has been the Retro Achievements Podcast, and we will see you all next time.